Good evening, Chelsea fans, and welcome to episode 7 of Chelsea Waves. A chastening week for the Blues after we completely dropped the ball away to Leeds and Bournemouth in the Premier League, to leave us all wondering if anything has changed at all since last year. We review last week and look ahead to the week to come with an away trip to Atlanta in Bergamo, Italy in the Champions League. And then we'll be joined by Everton content creator Tom Pridgin to bring the opposition view ahead of our fixture at Stamford Bridge on Saturday. Let's get into it.
What a difference a week makes in football. Despite all the optimism in this room this time last week, following a stoic 10-man showing against Europe's best, talks of a title charge, Charity FC gifts Leeds and Farker a much needed 3-1 win and follows it up with a meek draw against Bournemouth. Utterly tragic.
I think this is the first sort of disastrous week we've had on this podcast, albeit in its infancy. I suspect the first of many, and this really did typify December Chelsea that we'll all be very familiar with all of those same sort of fragilities and frailties coming back to the surface once again. We called it last week. We sort of ahead of time that there was the potential for this week, well, this last week rather, to make or break us this season. And I think a bit of PTSD coming into play with what happened last year with those games against sort of Everton away when we had the chance to go top of the league, Fulham at home on Boxing Day, and I think Ipswich just after that, where we lost 2-0 there and really just imploded. And the months following that with injuries and just terrible form were really tricky for Chelsea. So we got to hope that this we can put a line in the sand from here, but it really was terrible. I think all of the traits that we saw in those huge games against Barcelona and Arsenal that allowed us to really take the game to them, that strength, the intensity that typified our game in those was really juxtaposed by what we saw in these games in particular. I think the first 5 minutes we lost the game against Leeds. We went 1-0 down. We were being outfought, outmuscled, losing every 50-50, losing all the set pieces and the long throws and the corners that were being pummeled into our box. It was quite similar actually against Bournemouth, the way we started the game, just totally not there. Bournemouth on a terrible run of form coming out the traps as expected. And we conceded, I think, in the first 4 minutes against Bournemouth, albeit it was quite heavily offside. They had a penalty shout, which was also offside, but very similar the way we started both of those games, which I think tells you that the hunger and the intensity was not there. And that's ultimately what you need in this league to have and generate that consistency that allows you to mount a serious, incredible title charge. Want to call out a couple of particularly abject performances within those. I think Enzo Fernandez, we saw him, you know, reverting to type what we've basically seen for the last 3 years in those two matches, the sort of quintessential Premier League away games where we've seen him struggle time in, time out. Once again, the case. João Pedro, I really don't know what's going on there. He just looks totally disinterested, completely incapable, holding onto the ball for too long, not doing anything productive with it. Santos struggled against Leeds, didn't come on against Bournemouth, and Delap, I think, really just exemplified the struggles of Chelsea in both of these games. He wasn't able to impose himself and ultimately crashed down in the first half against Bournemouth with that shoulder injury, which I think is probably going to end his first season at Chelsea very abruptly. So yeah, really, really poor all round. I don't really know what to make of it from there, George.
To add some context, this Leeds side to begin with came into that Chelsea game off the back of four straight losses, and Bournemouth had lost four in five in the league, taking just 1 point out of a possible 15. I think this absolutely points to mentality and nothing else. There's no other logic beyond that. I actually draw parallels between Blue Co's Chelsea, Maresca's Chelsea, and Brendan McCullum's England cricket team. There's hubris in methods, this kind of consistent, adamant feeling that they've reinvented the wheel, but ultimately neither side adjusts to conditions. Just as the England cricket team fail to even attempt to adapt to a bouncy pitch at Perth or a day night pink ball in Brisbane. This Chelsea team pays zero respect to a fervent, hostile Ellen Road atmosphere. We saw six changes in personnel. We saw experimentation with Trev shunted, shifted to right back. Ultimately, you have to earn the right to play in these tough away games, to fight and to try and tame that fervent fan base that in time has a soft underbelly that will very much be there for the taking, but you really have to fight to earn that right. And Chelsea just seem incapable. We've discussed previous early away games again, lesser opposition, Forest, Burnley on paper, great scorelines. But I've been adamant in those occasions to highlight the shaky, slow, sloppy starts by Chelsea. Again, instigated by Maresca's lineup, but clearly magnified by a lack of drive, a lack of intensity from those players. I think there was a really potent snippet from John Terry in the week whereby from the get-go you either have to match them or you have to take the sting out of the game. This learning, this know-how comes from experience, something that Chelsea sorely miss and Blue Co continue to reject in the transfer window. Uncle Tosin, at just 28 years of age, younger than both of us, is the oldest in the squad. And you may say, well, this proves that age is just a number, given he was arguably the most culpable. But Blueco's obsession with market opportunities and ultimately churn dictate that few players that actually experience that chastening 3-0 defeat at Ellen Road under Jesse Marsh just a couple years back remain within the squad to take that learning and to right the wrongs.
This game was obviously the long and hotly anticipated return of Cole Palmer, and I was absolutely ecstatic to see him in the starting lineup away to Bournemouth. But all those old sort of troubles and the misprofiling that we've seen by Maresca, I think, ever since he joined with regards to Cole Palmer specifically, we were quickly reminded of this role that he's assigned to him, of this almost weird left centre mid position that he occupies, where Enzo seems to play slightly more advanced and also on the right flank, which we know Cole Palmer likes to occupy, and all of his best games and all his best moments have come from there. So I was frustrated, bemused, very annoyed at the fact that Palmer was there again. I just can't understand what's going on there. The reluctance to let him play in his best position, to cut in on his left foot where we know he plays his best football. I think it's probably a case once again of Enzo Fernandez just being accommodated, which is an old struggle that we've spoken about at length. But what do you think is going on there?
I think there was a quip a while back from Maresca about Palmer building his game and learning that left-hand side position. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, audience. I'm not sure I've ever seen Lionel Messi deployed on the left-hand side. It's utter idiocy, particularly as we said, against Premier League opposition to experiment. But ultimately, as I say, Palmer coming back from a lengthy absence, no doubt an element of anxiety there. Doesn't want to kind of push his body too hard. I think his inefficacy is very much driven once again by a lack of a midfield. We've praised Enzo Fernandez, rightly so, in recent weeks, but I want to hark back to my original stance that Enzo Fernandez simply needs a minimum two other bodies next to him in midfield against any sort of competent opposition. And these are Premier League away games. We saw him struggle there against Lincoln in the cup. So it's clear to see he needs bodies, he needs players around him. I thought obviously Caicedo's absence for both games was enforced, and potentially you would argue that Reece couldn't turn it around. So there's question marks as to whether you could field two bodies in that midfield for Leeds. But that Bournemouth game beyond that, with Reece returning to the lineup, the omission of Santos there for me was perplexing. Bournemouth, yes, poor run of results. But as I said, first 20, 25, 30 minutes, compete and then move on to win. We've not shown previous of winning these tough away ties. We've not earned the right to field, I would argue, lineups akin to Pep Guardiola or a Bielsa. Bielsa, potentially a lunatic on that front, but Pep Guardiola has earned the right over the years to field these one-men midfields against away sides. They've shown they've got the quality to win those games. Chelsea, Enzo's Chelsea, have not done that and continue to make the same mistake.
And the striker situation, George, what are we going to do there? Delap obviously crashed down midway through that first half with what looked like a collarbone injury or a shoulder injury. He'd been grappling with Senesi all half, and looks like he got the advantage over him in the end, which was really frustrating. But even before that, he wasn't playing particularly well. Seems more interested in taking on his defenders physically than trying to find space and score goals, which is slightly perplexing to me. We've obviously got the pre-contract agreed with the Dutch international striker at Strasbourg, Omega, who looks pretty decent. I think he's got 7 goals in 11 games so far this season. Do we expedite that transfer? I don't think we're going to do it, but we're going to need something if our only options now for the next few months are going to be Mark Gu and a terribly out of form, not traditional number 9, Joao Pedro.
I think I jokingly coined League One Liam Delap a few weeks back, potentially prematurely. My brother called me out at the time. I think we all called and challenged him to step up. But ultimately, his performances have been tragic. I mean, we're looking now at starts at least against Burnley, Leeds, and Bournemouth, and he's looked totally and utterly ineffective, spearheading a Chelsea side that has not been shy on goals. So, as I said, seriously concerning for me. Looks far more interested in sort of bodying players, but he looks no more than a rugby player. I've not even glimpses as far as I'm concerned. I mean, tame strikes, tame efforts, some seriously questionable sites of decision making. I mean, I'll hark back to Burnley there, but just rogue shots with 3-on-2s, 2-on-1s approaching. Seriously worrying there. I'm hoping now that the coin drops that João Pedro, we need you. You mentioned at least we've got the luxury of a mega. We need to expedite that right to bring him back in January. We seem to consistently kind of make this mistake of having players waiting in the wings, signing for further terms. We need them for the here and now. So I would very much be looking to expedite that. Scored a great goal for Strasbourg against Palace. We need something.
Yeah, tough negotiations with Strasbourg beckons, I feel. Um, so looking, I guess, towards the rest of the year, we've still got trips to Newcastle, Villa, and City to come. A lot of our sort of more difficult fixtures so far this season have all come at home. So I think the outlook is starting to look pretty bleak for us, to be honest. What would you say is our sort of recalibrated expectation for the season now? Is it top 4 and a domestic trophy and push in the Champions League? I think that's probably where my head's at.
I, for one, am frankly tired of consistently revising expectations for Blue Coast Chelsea. Constant talks of future timeframes to challenge despite the billions spent. Let's put this last week down to Moyes' tax, draw a line, show some resilience, and revert to the levels seen against Barcelona and Arsenal last week. The latter, league leaders, stuttered as anticipated against Villa and now face an injury crisis of their own at the back. Let's refocus against Everton Saturday without Moyes and then back ourselves to go on a run with him back in the 11, alongside hopefully a fully fit Cole Palmer, back up to speed, back up to the levels we know he's capable of. Villa themselves should be the benchmark here. Winless in their first 5, they've now won 9 from 10 and are right in contention out of nowhere, just 3 points off top. It's anyone's game.
Onto our theme of the week, justice for Josh Acheampong, who suddenly been sort of extricated from the squad ever since his really sort of impressive debut run of games for us. He obviously got his first goal in that 12:30 away fixture to Forest a few weeks back. played in that sort of terrible home fixture against Sunderland, but through no fault of his own, we ended up losing that. And ever since, he's sort of just disappeared from the squad without any sort of rationale or explanation from Maresca. We saw Maresca's quotes midweek following that loss against Leeds at Ellen Road, where he expressed palpable regret over not playing Acheampong in that fixture, and we saw quite how bad Badiashile and Tosin were. To follow that up with another sort of repeat absence for Acheampong just seems cruel and frankly bizarre. So what's going on there?
Josh's recent repeated omission has been nothing short of bizarre. As you say, he's featured just 8 solitary minutes against Barcelona since a 4-3 win over Wolves over a month ago now. His last Premier League appearance being that loss against Sunderland, that at the time was a 1-1 draw. He's been far from faultless. I mean, we saw that early stray pass match they won against Palace, shaky start against Forest, but ultimately in both of those games, he's really grown, learned from that early mistake, scoring against Forest, and ultimately 4 Premier League starts. He's kept 2 clean sheets and conceded just 2 goals. We've seen showings against Liverpool where we looked very solid with that Badia Shield pairing. He's tackled the likes of Mateta and Awoniyi admirably. Handfuls, the two of those, for the best about, let alone a 19-year-old. And to be quite honest, in retrospect, performed brilliantly there. We've had a string of high-profile errors from Tosin now. That Leeds howler being the latest of a very ugly portfolio. I want to see the same energy, please, for Tosin and others that we've seen for Josh. I think the worrying thing for me now is really start to question with this new sort of blue code Chelsea whether it is a meritocracy. Are we looking to win? Are we looking to utilize our resources to the best to win here and now? Or are there other forces at play? Are we looking to kind of maintain slash raise market value for the likes of Tosin with a view to a potential sale? And even more cynically, is there call for a pure profit exit for Josh Acheampong? We saw them flouting Chalabar around scandalously in the past. We've seen a fair few academy players being flipped. Is this too cynical a take?
I guess time will tell on that. I think with the centre back situation generally for us right now, I do sort of understand our starting pair at present being Wesley Fofana, who's been far from my favourite player, as you know. That's well documented amongst those who know me. But he's been pretty good ever since that Tottenham game where he was a surprise starter for us. So I probably wouldn't remove him from the lineup currently. And Chalobah alongside him, I think, is probably our best two currently, although that can change very quickly. What irks me and confuses me is where you go into sort of rotational matches like those against Leeds in particular midweek, and he's not getting a start. You're giving those minutes to the likes of Tosin, free transfer, a senior player in the squad, but one of our most unreliable currently, and Badia Shield, who I think's had one good game in the last year, and it was a great game against Liverpool at home, as we know, before he got injured again. So for him not even to be option C or D in that starting position at centre back just seems bizarre, given the run of form he had going into that match against Sunderland, where ever since of which he's disappeared.
I think credit where credit's due. Wesley Fofana and Trev Chalobah, as stands, are quite clearly the deserved starting partnership for Chelsea. Kept another clean sheet against Bournemouth, despite our frustrations there. Clean sheets against Barcelona, Wolves in the league, and as I say, a pretty admirable showing against Arsenal with 10 men. But ultimately, as you said, Wesley Fofana is made of glass, but he is being managed, as with Reece James. And as I say, we can only hope and trust that the physio is starting to atone for their errors and to get that right. But as you said, that very much leaves the door open for other centre backs with the Christmas period coming thick and fast. And Badia Shield on top has also had injury concerns. We talked about a litany of errors now from Tosin. He absolutely has done no more than Tosin, former, and deserves to be recalled to the side. Some of these quotes from Maresca, regret for not having played him in retrospect. I mean, he shoved Trev Chalobah to right back. He's clunky there. Acheampong has the attributes to play there. I mean, further quotes from Maresca. He was the one I fell in love with tonight a few months back. We trust him 100% more recently after the Brighton game. These inexplicably, flagrantly contradictory quotes from Maresca, I would posit some of the reasons why the Chelsea faithful are yet to warm to him. And ultimately, fine if we're winning games, not dropping points. But we've now had a shocking week, taking just 1 point from Leeds away, Bournemouth away, and we need what's best for the team. If he's good enough, he's old enough, play him.
So, a big win versus Barcelona last time out in the Champions League, which saw us into the top eight position, which is needed to secure automatic qualification into the knockout rounds. But a daunting fixture away in Bergamo, Italy, against informed side Atlanta, who are currently level on points with us, but trailing us slightly on goal difference. It looks daunting, but Chelsea are probably only needing 2 wins from our 3 remaining games against Atlanta, Napoli, and Paphos at home to see us into that sort of automatic place. We know that Atlanta have got previous form in Europe. They stopped the quadruple chasing side Leverkusen from under Xabi Alonso from winning the Europa League a couple of years ago. We saw Lookman score a hat trick in that game. They've also got Charles de Ketelaere from AC Milan in their midfield, so looks tricky, George. How do you see this one going?
Ominous, as you say. I know there's no longer Gasperini at the helm, but it very much feels like Atalanta in Bergamo, very much a side that have scored many a goal over the year. Think about wins against Liverpool, as you say, that Leverkusen shock against to end an invincible season. More recently, I've seen an impressive win away at De Zerbi's Marseille. So very much ominous on paper, and in terms of lineup, in terms of 11, very much feels a conundrum of our own making. We'll be hoping the shift to European competition is proves more fruitful for Chelsea than the Premier League's been this past week, but we're very much not in the position to rotate as we'd like to. Particularly as you say, we'd now need to win at least 2 of those remaining games. I'd wager that away tie in Naples is possibly even tougher. So you very much want to get the job done early and prevent future fixture pile up. And talking of future fixture pile up, this past week very much amplifies that need for us now to get the top eight. Previous kind of discussion, sure we'll talk about the Champions League format uh, to a greater extent in a future episode, but there's often been posited that maybe having that round of 32 tie rather than automatic qualification to the last 16 might actually suit certain sides, might give them that little bit of European warm-up going into the last 16 and later stages. I would wager Maresca has shown complete incompetence in terms of rotating a side, and that we absolutely need that buy now going into that busy period in the new year.
I don't think we can massively afford to rotate in this game, to be honest. I think given the need for 3 points in the Champions League, as you say, and the struggles against Leeds and Bournemouth, I think only a couple of tweaks from that team we put out against Bournemouth, I would be doubtful that we'd be putting Wesley Fofana in from the start there. So hopefully we'll see justice for Josh Acheampong play out there at last. I think I would like to see James in his proper position of right back in this game, and I would bring Santos into midfield to support Enzo Fernandez and provide a bit more legs for him there. Obviously, we've got the enforced change of Delap coming out of the side and likely João Pedro stepping in for this. So I think a couple of tweaks, but largely the same team. I think it's a question of mindset that will see us over the line here rather than individual players. So I think we'll know probably from the first 5 minutes, as we did against Leeds and Bournemouth, if the players are up for this. But we've seen us under the spotlight before wilt and struggle. So I really hope that won't be the case here.
Thankfully, I think we've overlooked Moises Caicedo returning to the side.
I forgot
This
that.
is,
Yeah, completely forgot that.
yeah, you'd hope this will be pivotal. This will be return of Moises to the side and a return to winning ways for Chelsea. Beyond that, I feel Wesley and I would fear as well, Reece James may not play. I would like to favour that Everton fixture for him, but again, can we afford that luxury? We saw the chaotic end-to-end basketball match in Azerbaijan against Karabag, and there's every chance this Atalanta side will be a far tougher proposition. So minimal changes. I imagine Cole Palmer will be another rested. I doubt he can turn around another 90 after featuring heavily in the last couple of games. But yes, less is more in terms of changes for me. We've not earned the right. Can we please now shift to a formula of start with your strongest team and make changes, save legs when you're in that winning position?
What's your prediction, George? How do you see this one going?
I'm going to call a 2-all draw a la Karabag. I just don't trust us right now. And I hope at least if we do drop points here, it's because we've got an eye to Everton and that we go into that game with our strongest 11. But I'm going to go for a 2-all draw. Goals galore in Bergamo. Lookman on the score sheet, sadly. Um, I'm going to say for Chelsea, Moises is going to return with a bang and salvage a draw near the death.
I'm very sadly going to cast my first loss prediction on Chelsea Waves and go for a 2-1 loss and a really difficult evening with Atlanta going 2-0 up and Alejandro Garnacho pulling one back as he did in Karabag.
Time now for the opposition view. Up next for Chelsea in the Premier League, we've got Everton at home. Everton, who sit just 1 point behind Chelsea. And for this section, we've got a very special guest, Tom Pridgin.
Hi guys, how you doing?
Good mate, yourself.
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Obviously I'm on a bit of a high at the minute, so I know the same can't necessarily be said for you guys. So
It's the highs and lows,
Absolutely.
isn't it?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for joining us. Right. I have to confess, as I was coming to terms with the disappointment of more drop points for Chelsea, I was shocked to see that it was Everton who had gained ground and were tucked in just behind us in fifth place. This season is shaping up nicely then, I take it.
yeah, it's funny you say that because a lot of people have said that we've sort of slipped under the radar, and even to be honest, from the perspective of an Everton fan, there was a period where we'd won 1 in 7 games. So, like you say, I guess for everyone, the season sort of ebbed and flowed a lot, and we are just in a very good space at this minute. You're facing Everton at a very unfortunate time for you guys because we're on great form. I think that Nottingham Forest game the other night was kind of the apogee of this phase of the David Moyes project. It was a time where players weren't relying on other people. It was everyone putting in, the hard yards, making their tackles, making their sprints, all that sort of thing. And we had a goal from open play, we had a goal on the counter attack, and we had a goal from a set piece. All the aspects of the typical Everton values, the typical Everton way of playing, it all seemed to sort of come together. It was really good to see. But yeah, in terms of how the season's been, I think everyone's sort of feeling that it's sort of been a mixed season. As I said, we had 1 win in 7 games. So it was a period there, 1 win in 7. People were saying, "Has Moyes got to go? Has he passed that? Has he finished?" All those sorts of things. But no, I think, for everyone, it's a case of just being patient. I get it's different for you guys because you are a bit further along in your project. But for Everton, I think the culture and the fan base at the minute is take the positives when they come, accept the negatives when they come, and just sort of see it out because it is such a transition at this time.
And what has the evolution been specifically going from Sean Dyche to Moyes? I guess the second iteration of Moyes at Everton.
Well, it's a difficult one really because obviously Deitch sort of left, and it was a really confusing time when he left. He left mere hours before a cup tie. And there was a lot of raised eyebrows at the time, and people thinking, "Why has he done that now?" And it had then become clear he'd said to the management, to the powers that be, "Look, I've taken this team as far as I can go." There seemed to be a few, we hear reports there were a few crosswords, and off he went. David Moyes comes in, and there was a bit of debate amongst the fan base of, yeah, look, we know he's signed this contract, but is he going to be the guy to take us into the new stadium? A few concerns because you tend to think, well, a new stadium's a new era for Everton. Do you want to start a new era with a quote unquote relic of the past? But the culture is just it's been so massively shifted. I think obviously part of that is the financial being out of the financial troubles, the fact that the Freaking Group are now in really sort of implementing their strategies. We've got a whole new board and it seems a new direction we're going in as a club, being a lot more shrewd with business, things like that, all of which does have a positive impact with the fans, and then you can sort of see that translate onto the pitch. I mean, I know football fans like to mysticize football tactics at times and overanalyze and look at how many passes they're doing, but just as a fan, the experience of going to the game now, I'll go back to that Nottingham Forest match. You're on the you see your team on the ball making intelligent passes, trying to be creative. I mean, obviously the signings of Jack Grealish massively help with that. We haven't seen wingers like Jack Grealish and Iliman and Jai at Everton for, God, it must be well over a decade now. I mean, I'm thinking of De La Feu and Kevin Morales days, and that's 10 plus years ago now. It's a massively different experience as a season ticket holder myself, just going to the game now. You're in for a much more entertaining brand of football, while still, because it's obviously David Moyes, keeping those Everton values of hard work, don't shirk any tackles, all those sorts of things.
In terms of kind of playing style, our sort of outsider view of Everton, I guess, is very much that Moyes DNA, solid at the back. You mentioned the sprinkling of stardust within Jai. I'd add Grealish to that. We would also say potentially that a little bit blunt at number nine, but I saw Tiano Barry did score at the weekend. Is this a fair take or is this a little bit reductive?
Well, the thing that's often levied at Everton is they don't have a striker. They don't have a striker that they can rely on, and that is the glaring omission in the team at the minute. One goal in it was his first shot on target as well when he scored that goal. He can't go on another run like that. You can leave it and say, look, he was taking his time to adjust to the Premier League. Now he's got his first goal. He can't go on another run where it's 6 or 7 games before he scores again. That cannot happen. Beto's also not been delivering. He's been impactful when he comes on, as your second striker often is. He's not been good enough to rely on. So it's not entirely reductive to say that Everton are, for the most part now, it remains to be seen, are they lacking in that number 9 position? There's so many other areas of the pitch where Everton and Everton fans know that we need to work on. We've not been able to replace Seamus Coleman for 10 years now. Seamus Coleman is one of my favourite ever Everton players. I could not speak highly of him enough. I think he is the greatest signing in Premier League history. £60,000. The amount of value that we have got from him is unbelievable. But he needs replacing.
And one name not mentioned so far is obviously Kiernan Dewsbury Hall, well known to Chelsea fans, and it looks like he's just fitted in like a glove in that Everton midfield, connecting the midfield and the attack, and looks like a real top signing for you guys. How's he been received so far?
Yeah, thank you very much for him, actually.
I never
Again,
wanted to sell
another
him.
very
Never wanted to sell him.
he, he's been a very good. He's been, I would argue, actually, probably our best signing so far. I mean, I know all the narratives and all the media attention will arc towards Grealish, but I think the way that Dewsbury holds up, particularly in these last few games, it was interesting when Everton were sort of on that unfortunate run, the one win in 7. A lot of the fan base were turning to Dewsbury Hall a bit like, what, we expect, maybe you need to start doing a little bit more. And the guys who would sit around me at the game, we would always say to each other, you know what, Dewsbury Hall would be so much better if he could just be deployed a little bit deeper in that typical 8 box to box. Because for the start, he was operating as a kind of second striker. He doesn't have the pace or the physicality to necessarily deal with that. But one thing you get with Dewsbury Hall is pure quality on the ball. I think that was what you were missing out on at Chelsea, purely because you had Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez. So you're not going to drop them. It's never stagnant when it's with Dewsbury Hall. There's always, even if it's just a pass, even if it's a sideways pass, forwards, backwards, he always keeps the ball moving and always keeps the momentum with Everton. I think he's absolutely brilliant.
I'm glad to see he's flourishing, and it very much seems to be a gaping hole in our midfield these past couple of days. You mentioned kind of the dearth of a top number nine. Again, serious parallels with Chelsea there. I think we always hark back to Diego Costa, and imagine for you guys it's Romelu Lukaku. We always love to hear, let's say, not only your view or your granular view on your club, but also the opposition view on Chelsea, the circus that is Chelsea FC in 2025. How do you see Chelsea?
It's the Chelsea thing, the Chelsea discussion has been on every football fan's lips for ages. I mean, since Todd Bowley came in, really. I mean, I guess because you had so much success under Abramovich, you now look at this new way of operating and think it's a okay, okay, let's see. It's like a let's see. That I don't want to say it's good, it's bad, it's a let's see. I mean, what was it, 12 trophies in 12 years under Abramovich? Have you won a trophy under Todd Bowley yet?
Depends how
Club
you
World Cup
The
define a trophy.
yeah,
Yeah,
and the
other
Conference League.
yeah.
yeah, the conference. Yeah,
Two
yeah.
two
So
trophies that didn't exist prior to his tenure. So
so I mean,
we'll take
I
him.
don't know. I mean, the thing you would say about Todd Bowley is he's got an ownership stake in the LA Dodgers, just won the World Series. They've got the best baseball player possibly who's ever lived. So clearly he's doing something right over there. I think this new way of operating is unusual. I think wanting a manager who's very much a coach. Again, very similar to the baseball model, how you have your coach, your general manager, and the owner. That sort of three-way parts. And Enzo Maresca very much falls under the coach. I don't think it seems that they don't want someone to come in and sort of revolutionize Chelsea or be the Jurgen Klopp figure, and take a grip hold of the entire workings of the club. No, your Enzo Maresca's job is very clearly coach these young players coming through. The one thing you have to say about Chelsea, though, is from an opposition fan, you can see that there is some real talent in that squad. There's real talent there, and maybe it's not Maresca, maybe it's someone else later on down the line. As soon as someone comes in and just makes it all mold together, Chelsea have enough quality in that team that could easily compete for the and not just like be a pretender competitor for the Premier League, a serious contender with Man City for that Premier League. I mean, that Esteval, I'm sure we'll get on to him, but oh my God, I've genuinely, for someone under the age of 20, very few I've seen in my time watching football as skilled as him. He is unbelievable.
That leads us nicely on to the predictions. How do you see this game playing out, and what is your ultimate final score?
I don't want to sound like a pessimist, but I think it entirely depends on which Chelsea turn up. If the Chelsea that can play decide to play, Everton are in for a really tough time. I think it will entirely depend on, as we've said, how well Chelsea bounce back from their sort of shaky run of form. We've had some decent draws in the past at Stamford Bridge, so it's not out of the question. But I mean, again, I think if Pedro Neto plays, I feel like the team could deal with that. If that Esteval plays, I suspect he would tear us limb from limb. Cole Palmer's back now, another worry. So I'm going to be hopeful and go for a 1-1 draw.
I had
But
exactly the same actually, Tom. I think it's going to be a tricky game for us. We know your squad is going to be bang up for this. Chelsea got the midweek game tomorrow against Atlanta, so there's going to be some extra mileage in the legs there. We've got Caicedo serving his final match of his 3-match suspension following that red against Arsenal. So I think it's going to be really tricky. I could see Everton getting an early lead, looking to protect that, and Chelsea clawing level towards the end. So I'm going to echo you and say 1-1.
Very much look at this fixture as two sides found wanting in that number nine position. I'm going to call out João Pedro, dropped against Bournemouth, arguably insulted with Mark Guéhi coming on for the injured Delap. I'm going to call on him to finally step up to the mantle now in Delap's absence. Guéhi not really showing much, and demand that he really steps up from the get-go, from minute nine, in the number nine shirt with Cole Palmer potentially behind him. And I'm going to say Chelsea race into a 2-0 lead with Everton clawing one back and making it really tense at the end. Thanks a lot, Tom. Look forward to the game and sure we'll catch up afterwards.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks very
Pleasure,
much,
mate.
Tom.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in once again today. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll be back soon, hopefully in better spirits, with another one next week. Let's cross our fingers in the meantime for 6 points against Atlanta and Everton in the week to come. Thank you, and have a great rest of your weeks.